Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Reload podcast. Along with Marshall Scott, I'm Justin Southwell, and we are solo together. Doesn't make sense. We're a duo today instead of a trio
Duoed.
because Nathan Gilslider, injury report, out with the flu. And, it's tough out there right now. Generally, with the snow, the ice, all that stuff. But if you got a flu on top of that, it's not a good combo.
Absolutely not. We were discussing a little bit before this. Nathan's usually the most on top of our group chat. And whenever I sent out the bat signal this morning, I was like, pod today. And, it took a while. No response from Nathan. I was getting a little worried. So not that I'm, given the circumstances, the flu of all the things racing in my anxious head was a plus. I was like, okay, he's alive. He's good. But yeah, 3 becomes 2, but we will make do.
There you go. All right. So the thing that's going on right now, obviously cold weather. It's sweeping snowstorms across the country. How are you holding up in Stillwater?
Yeah, I got out Saturday for the basketball game, which was a driving experience that I haven't really had in a while, at least. It wasn't because it hadn't been icy, at least where we are, Stillwater portion of it. I've heard back where I'm from, back in Medill, I've heard they've like almost exclusively gotten ice. But it was a really fine powdery snow. So driving, while it looked a little spooky, wasn't the worst. Got out and shoveled my driveway for the first time. That's the first time I've had to do that as a homeowner. Did that today. But I don't know. It hasn't snowed this much since I was in like the 8th grade, I'm 30 years old now. So it's been a little bit. So I sort of enjoy it. If it's going to be cold, it might as well snow. That's how I stand.
Yeah, I'm good with that. Like snow, fine. Ice, snow. That's never fun. So Medill, your people, I feel for you. But it's nice. We've been able to work remote. I can work from home. Kids are getting out in the snow, having a great time. Shoveling the driveway, not as fun, but it's been worse, I guess, especially with a combination of ice and snow. It's always rough. So with it just being snow, it has been better. And it is kind of a weird fine powder. It's a different kind of snow this time.
Yeah, absolutely. Whenever I think it's changed now to where it's maybe like melted a tiny bit to where you can clump it together. But like my wife and I went out yesterday to sort of walk around the yard, and I was going to be a jerk and make a snowball and throw it at her. And like I was trying to I didn't have any gloves on, so I'm like, well, this has got to be worth it. So I go down there and I'm start putting together a snowball, and it just like crumbles in my hand. I'm like, this was not worth it.
Yeah, not worth it at all. No.
Yeah. But shoveling the driveway, it was like cool for the first like couple of shovels because it's like, oh yeah, this is a manly thing to be doing as a homeowner to be doing. And then like by the time you're actually making a dent into things, you're like, all right, I'm so ready for this to be over at this point.
Yeah, it's like if there's part of you feels like, oh, I accomplished something. And then part of it is kind of like, man, I understand why you delegate this out to the kids in the neighborhood who are coming by and they want $20 to shovel the driveway or whatever the case is. So, might be worth the investment. I don't know. Well, we got to dive into some Oklahoma State stuff. And I think probably we need to start with hoops. With the last game that you were at, some people in the comments of our last video or on Twitter wanting us to give us our opinions on what's going on with Oklahoma State basketball, not hold back. I think that this might be the reason that Nathan came down with illness. He watched that game and was so sick, he has not fully recovered and he can't make it tonight. That's the best thing that I can think of with how that first half went, at least.
Yeah. The first half was rough. It ended 51-21. Iowa State leading. Iowa State shot 62% from the field in that half, 53% from 3 in that half, scored 14 points off turnovers in that half. So yeah, it was that half just in general was like the least up I think this team has been in some time. But unfortunately, slow starts have become a bit of a normal thing for this group since Big 12 play. So I use the first 4 minutes because that's whenever the first media timeout is the first time the ball goes out of play under 16. And so in those first 4 minutes of their 7 Big 12 games, they've been outscored 74-46 combined, which is obviously not good. And the TCU game last week, they started down 9-0. They come back, they have that lead at the end, and then they give it up. Obviously, if you don't start down 9-0, who knows what that game looks like? And then it was similar to this game where they just started in such a big hole, going into the locker room down 30, and then they actually outscored Iowa State 50 to 33 in the second half, but like that didn't matter at all because of how poorly they played in the first. But yeah, it's just really more of the same. The Big 12 is really good. Iowa State is a really, really good basketball team, like a super good basketball team.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's just like more of the same. Oh, nobody got back in time. Breakaway layup. Oh, somebody got caught in rotation, wide open three to a guy who is known for hitting wide open three. It's just sort of more of the same stuff. So until defensively something changes, I think my expectations for this team have started to just sort of shift a little bit in terms of what's going to happen, what's possible. I still do think I'm not turning in this team's definitely not making the tournament slip quite yet, just because of the Big 12. While it is a slaughterhouse, if you win a couple of those games in a row, everything flips around pretty quick. But at the same time, I think I'm just expectation wise thinking a little bit differently about this team now that I've seen 7 games in the Big 12 and they still haven't really picked up anything on the defensive end.
Yeah, that makes sense. And just looking a little bit ahead at the schedule, I saw it was at Utah, which is winnable, I think.
Yeah, Utah is like the worst team in the Big 12 by like a decent margin. Not that they're horrible, but I think they're like in the 130s in the net compared to everybody else who's like 90 and up.
Yeah, and I understand that there are rivalry games with BYU, but BYU is a top 15 team, and they've been playing somewhat close. They've already played them twice. I found that to be interesting, but going to Utah, Steve Lutz still has that chance to get his first Big 12 road win. But then you go right into it's BYU, number 1 Arizona. So it's kind of like the Utah game looks a little bit more like a must win at this point.
Yeah, it's tough. And again, it's tough to say must win just because if they lose this, but then rattle off 3 that they're not supposed to win, then that turns out that game wasn't must win. But yeah, if this team is going to make the tournament, I think we're going to know they've at least got to look, they can't get run out of Salt Lake City. They've got to stand and compete and be a part of that game. And if they want to make the tournament, they more than likely have got to win that game. So yeah, that one is big. I went through their schedule. We were going through it up in the media row whenever, OSU was down 30 in the first half. And I think it is like somewhat manageable from this point on. Arizona State isn't that great. Obviously BYU and Arizona, those are gonna be tough outs, but Arizona State's not anything too crazy. TCU, we've already seen that they should have beaten TCU in Fort Worth, get them up in Stillwater. This Kansas team is not the Kansas team that Bill Self usually has in terms of, just sort of dominating the Big 12, but it's still a pretty good team. Colorado, that's one that they can definitely compete in. West Virginia has honestly been somewhat surprising this year, given their quick coaching change that they had to make. Cincinnati, UCF. So I think it does get a little bit lighter in this back half, which is another reason why I'm not quite ready to say this team is not making the NCAA tournament. But yeah, it starts with Utah, and I really do think that if they don't win this one, they're really rowing up creek without a paddle.
But then you have Baylor, and it's kind of like Baylor seems to be down compared to the rest of the league to what they have been, even though they have a really good player on their roster who's an NBA guy, but their one Big 12 win is against Oklahoma State. So that's not fun. The other part of that, though, is like you mentioned, Iowa State shooting 62% from the field at Gallagher, Iowa. What can we do? I mean, obviously play tougher defense, but some of this just seems to be like these teams are coming in with like some hot streaks. Something just doesn't seem right. It's not adding up in my head that it just seems like you can't chalk it up to just defense only. Like, is that simply all it is, or is there something else going on here? I don't know. Like, I don't know basketball well enough to know how this keeps happening.
I'm open to supernatural theories. I will say, whenever we talked with Anthony Roy before the season started, we were talking about his time coming here last year whenever he was with Green Bay, and he was like, "Yeah, I heard going in that this was a shooter's gym, and it is." So I wasn't ever known for my shooting ability in the high school game of basketball, much less the college game of basketball. So I don't really know what a shooter's gym looks or feels like. But Anthony Roy, say what you will about him, definitely is a shooter. So I don't know. Yeah, I think it's a mixture of it being a shooter's gym and then Oklahoma State maybe not being there on the catch, just sort of running late, sometimes throwing a hand up, and then watching a 3 get bombed on them. And then sometimes the most frustrating part is they'll get a stop, not get an offensive rebound, but then everybody will sort of be in the paint, and an Iowa State guy will get the offensive rebound, turn around, throw it to a guy who's wide open. That guy will hit a 3. So it's like instead of that, Iowa State just getting 2 on that possession, they missed and got 3. So those are the most frustrating once they go in. But yeah, I'm open to supernatural explanations for why teams always seem to come into Gallagher Arena and not miss.
Yeah, I don't know. Something is off. I don't know what it is, but it can't just be, play tougher defense. I refuse to believe that with the percentage going on right there. It does not make sense to me. It's not adding up. But anyway, Pokes have a week off-ish, right? Because they don't have the midweek game.
Yeah.
But then they come back and play Saturday against Utah. So maybe a little bit of a break, a little reset. OSU was at number 73 in the net rankings, and Utah sitting at about 116. Got a chance here. Got a real chance. Anything else with basketball before we head on to the next topic?
No, I think this week off was needed. You go to Fort Worth, you get your heart ripped out of your chest and shown to you, whenever you lose an 8-point lead in the final 4 minutes and don't score. And then to just, go onto the floor and get blown out as quickly as they did against Iowa State. Obviously, kudos to them for fighting back in the second half. And a bunch of people would say, Iowa State threw out their backups. That honestly wasn't necessarily the case. Like Damon Lipsey, I think played, like 18 minutes in the second half of the 20. So Iowa State, those guys probably took their foots off the gas, but good on Oklahoma State for finishing that game off. But it really didn't matter. I just think this is a really good time for them to have that midweek off, given the way the past 2 games have gone. So hopefully they can reset going into.
Yeah, no, it's a good call. Just I don't know that a lot of people have given Oklahoma State basketball the props for not laying down, not giving up whenever things are completely out of hand. They actually made it somewhat like, hey, maybe we have a little bit of a chance here in the second half, where they got it within, was it 9 or 10 points at one point?
Got it down to 10. Kanye Clary went on a roll there late, especially.
Yeah. So, that's, you love to see the effort there, and then, put it together for a full game where you're not having to dig yourself out of a hole whenever you're down so much in that first half. So.
Yeah, and I want to give a shout out to Ryan Crotty, the freshman. He hadn't played, and I think he played like 2 minutes in the last 5 games combined. Gets thrown out there for that game in the first half whenever, Steve's just sort of looking for answers. Hit 3 threes, did really what he's supposed to do. I was sort of surprised, I got a bunch of texts, or not texts, but like messages being like, why wasn't he playing earlier? And he was he's a 3-point specialist, true freshman who was shooting 29% from 3. So like I get why exactly, Steve wasn't exactly just running him straight back onto the floor. But given, they talk about his effort a lot and sort of how much of a hard worker Ryan Crotty is. So I sort of was surprised, whenever things aren't going well, that they don't just be like, hey, we're going to throw this freshman kid in if you guys aren't going to do what we ask. So it was a career high in minutes for Ryan Crotty. Looked good, hit threes. Still obviously has got rooms to grow, but I think that was a positive step in a game that otherwise wasn't very positive for Oklahoma State fans.
The Reload podcast is brought to you by Brewster Consulting Group. Do any of these sound familiar at your company? Our processes are manual and inefficient with no documentation. Our data reporting takes forever and isn't accurate. We hear all the hype about AI, but have no clue what it actually means for our business. Our projects always run over time and over budget. If so, talk with our friends at Brewster Consulting Group. They help build organizations that run like well-oiled machines with clear processes, reliable data and reporting, and technology that actually works for you. Their team of 6 Sigma Black Belts, PMP certified project managers, and seasoned data engineers have delivered solutions that are built to last for local clients like the Tulsa International Airport and Medify. They've also delivered solutions for large international enterprises like DP World. Even better, Brewster was founded and is run by a proud OSU alum and season ticket holder. Learn more about them at www.brewsterconsulting.com or learn more about their methodologies by connecting with them at Brewster Consulting Group on LinkedIn or YouTube. All right, Marshall, I think this is something you were working on today. So if our listeners out there have not had a chance, go visit pistolsfiringblog.com and check out Marshall's first 2026 depth chart for the football team, because it's way too early. But man, we're just waiting. It seems like the national championship it was last week, but between that and the last bowl games was another 10 days. And then between the semifinals and all that stuff, it just seems like the season's been over for a while, at least for us, for Oklahoma State fans.
Yeah. But the Oklahoma State season has been over since it started.
Well, that's true. Yeah. So it feels like it's been a while. And what's kind of crazy is we're 1 week removed in reality from the end of college football season. So it's kind of like, man, we've got so much time left between now and then, but it's nice that you're able to put together a way too early depth chart for us. So appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. I just did the offense today. I'm going to do the defense at some point this week. I like thought about let's just make this all in one depth chart, and then I thought about the defense, and I was like, I don't know any of the the offensive one. It's somewhat straightforward. We'll just start at the top. QB1 might surprise everybody, but the guy who is almost making as much as the head coach is who I've got tabbed down for QB1, and Drew Mestamaker. I put Grant Jordan, the UMass transfer, as QB2, with the caveat I put in the written portion that I wouldn't be totally shocked if one of those freshmen came in and Eric Morris really liked him, just because you think to all the freshmen that Eric Morris has played. Caleb Hawkins, true freshman. Drew Mestamaker got a start the bowl game of his true freshman year, and then it was obviously the redshirt freshman starter. So I certainly think there's a world where one of those young guns comes in and is sort of learning behind Drew Mestamaker. But for the time being, I stuck with the guy who's actually proven it at the college level to a certain extent in Grant Jordan as QB2.
Do you have any way too early predictions that we'll see one of the backup quarterbacks within the first 3 games because of a blowout, not because of any kind of injury to Drew Mestamaker by any means? But
yeah, I would hope at least in that Murray State game that there is a second quarterback that gets him run. And again, this is old era versus new era, but the last 5 years of FCS games have been a little tighter than I or maybe anybody else may have wanted. So hopefully it's just sort of a boot to face whenever it comes to that Murray State game, and maybe even the Tulsa game. You're going. None of these guys were basically on the roster, but as a program, you're going to a Tulsa team that beat you last year, ended an era of Oklahoma State football in some ways. Hopefully, some boots get laid in there too.
That's nice, but I kind of want to see Mestamaker in the whole time. Let's get the Heisman campaign going, boost the stats, all that stuff. But
Alan Bowman won Walter Camp National Player of the Week for his performance against Tulsa. So anything is possible. And 2 weeks later, he got pulled. So
that is crazy. Man, what a year.
Yeah, what a year. Moving to running back. RB1, Caleb Hawkins. This is the only place where I used ORs. I tried to not take the coward's way out and put ORs, but I did put Ayo or Katie Jones or Trey Page III. Basically put Trey Page there almost exclusively, and it's tragic Nathan isn't here for this, but Nathan's a big Trey Page guy. So I was like, you know what, if Nathan sees something in him, I'm gonna tail him on that a little bit. So I think Oklahoma State fans would very much be wanting Katie Jones to sort of assert himself in that RB2 role. Just the thought of having 2 Oklahoma kids, both being Caleb Hawkins a true sophomore, Katie Jones a true freshman. I think that the fan base would certainly like that a lot, but I imagine it'll be more of Caleb Hawkins plus whoever has got the hot hand.
Makes sense. Yeah, Trey Page III. Tarleton State. So this is interesting. Back when we had the Believe in OK State podcast, Meg Robinson was the host of that. Trey Page actually warranted a text from her to our group saying hey, this is a big deal. This guy's legit. So keep an eye out for him. So there you go. We got Nathan's on him, Meg Robinson. So we've got a Trey Page kind of fan club going on already.
Yeah, you guys are the start of that. It makes me want to move him up on the OR list a little bit. Maybe he doesn't need to be the last of the ORs. Maybe he needs to be the first of the ORs.
There you go. All right. So receiver, this is where it gets, there's no ORs, but there are plenty of receivers to kind of share the load.
Yeah, went with 3 guys. The wide receiver ones went Wyatt Young, Justin Bowick, and Chris Barnes. Scott Wright, who is the Oklahoma State beat writer, he texted me so Justin Bowick has a pronunciation guide on the Illinois site, but it's either Bow or Bow, and he was trying to determine whether it was Bowick or Bowick, and the pronunciation guide doesn't help you with that whatsoever. So
nice. Great job, guys.
Yeah, we'll learn how to say his name one of these days, but for now I'm going Bowick. So yeah, Wyatt Young, Justin Bowick, and then Chris Barnes, the Wake Forest transfer for wide receiver 2s. I went Miles Coleman, Israel Perk, and Yanni Weir, the JUCO transfer that they signed on signing day. Super quick. Receivers, it's much less of a steady position in terms of there's going to be these guys and some more, I imagine, rotating in pretty regularly.
Very nice. But Young, Bowick, and Barnes are all 4-star transfers per 247.
Yes. There are a dozen Big 12 teams that don't even have 3 4-star transfers in their portal class. Oklahoma State has 3 4-stars just in the receiver room that they brought over. So that feels good, especially whenever you're pairing that with a 5-star quarterback.
Pretty awesome.
Yeah.
All right, tight end, and we are planning on using tight ends.
Yeah,
as far as I know. So
tight end, it's not the deepest of rooms, if I'm honest. I still wouldn't mind like 1 or 2 of the remaining spots being floated to tight ends. And maybe I'm just a little apprehensive because of all the injuries that Oklahoma State had at that position this year. But I went with Donovan Green, obviously the LSU transfer. He's got all the makings of a stud. Now it's just about Eric Morris and the staff sort of bringing that out of him. And then I went with Oscar Hammond as tight end 2. I think he was hurt for Oklahoma State this year, but transferred from North Texas, spent 2024 with Eric Morris. And then spent the 2 seasons before that at UCO. He's an Oklahoma kid. So that's where I went with tight end, and hopefully either or both of these guys get thrown to this year.
Very nice.
This is
offensive line. This is where it's
this is where it really gets fun. So we'll just go. So left tackle, I went Braden Nelson, is a North Texas transfer, started at left tackle for North Texas this year, and then Desmond Magia, also a North Texas transfer. I went with Jacob Sexton at left guard. He sort of played all over the place, aside from center at OU. So I'm not exactly sure what the plan is for him. He's big like a tackle. I think he's like 6'6", 6'7". So I'm not exactly sure what the plan is for him. Obviously it's January, but I slid him in at guard. Tyler Mercer I put at center. The Kansas transfer, he was with Eric Morris the year before at North Texas, transfers to Kansas, and is now with Eric Morris at Oklahoma State. Johnny Dixon I've got at right guard, who is North Texas's right guard. And then the right tackle spot I think will be the most competitive. Just on the offset, it's obviously, again, still January. Don't know how many times I can say that with how early this is, but I went with Ashton Lepo, the Michigan State transfer, but I could also see Joseph Hansen, Coastal Carolina transfer, for getting that spot. Joseph Hansen was Coastal's starting right tackle this year, was an all Sun Belt, like second teamer or something like that. Ashton Lepo started at Michigan State at right tackle in 2024. I think he started 2 games for the Spartans there this year. And then played in 2 others. So it seemed like he maybe sort of gotten beat out, or maybe there's an injury. I'm honestly not sure. So I think it's going to come down to one of those 2 guys to sort of fill in that last spot. And then the rest of the 2s, I mentioned Desmond Magia. I put, this one was a total shot in the dark, but Jalen Beckley was a pretty notable recruit that Oklahoma State had. I believe he's either just a true freshman or maybe a redshirt freshman this year. I've got him at that left guard 2. Got Jacoby Sanders at center 2. Louis Canepa, I've honestly not learned how to say his name, but I believe he was hurt this year. He was a New Mexico State transfer, came over with Bassett, if I'm not mistaken, or Mitchell, or whichever one was at New Mexico State. Oh, nice. And then the other right tackle, whoever doesn't win there, between Ashton Lepo and Joseph Hansen. So obviously a lot of names that I just threw out at you there, but this is an area where Oklahoma State's staff seemed to really hone in on throughout the portal, and they needed it given all that they've lost and that they weren't necessarily all that great there the last handful of years anyways.
Well, if you got a guy like Mestemaker coming in as a 5-star transfer and making the kind of money that he is making, you want to set him up for success. Obviously the best way to do that is to get him an offensive line that can protect him. So we've seen it with literally anything. I'm thinking Sam Darnold right now with the Seahawks gets to go to the freaking Super Bowl because he has a decent offensive line compared to what he had going on in Minnesota. So it makes a big difference for you.
It's the NFL sort of seemed like survival of the fittest. It just sort of seems like these 2 teams have just outlasted. They've just made it to the Super Bowl. And
it's been an interesting playoffs.
Yeah, it's just it feels like just about all the playoff games have been a coin flip, and they've just nailed the coin flips to get to this point. Tyler, who writes for us, is a big Seahawks fan, so he's stoked. He was very terrified of the Rams. It had been like all season, basically all year. Was like looking at the playoff picture, trying to not get matched up with the Rams. So the fact that I haven't talked with him about it today, but I imagine getting that monkey off his back was huge last night. So good for Tyler.
There you go. You got to think that they're probably the favorites going into that game based on how they've looked in the playoffs compared to how New England has looked in the playoffs. I don't know. It's the NFL. Anything can happen. So
yeah, maybe New England will get to the 2-yard line and try and throw a pass. Or no, maybe the Seahawks will get to the 2-yard line and try and throw a pass.
Maybe they'll get to the 2-yard line and actually run it in.
Yeah.
Learn from their mistakes.
Wouldn't that be like if that situation pops up, holy crap. But
the script writers of the NFL are just running out of ideas at that point.
But what if they just go 4 straight handoffs and don't get it? What if they're like, we can't make the same mistake again?
Yeah.
Like I can't be Pete Carroll.
And
so
then,
and they don't get it. And they're like,
it's like, well,
Yeah, why didn't you throw it to Jonathan Smith and Jigba or whatever? So yeah, that'll be something. But yeah, the NFL season for me was over whenever like Tucker Kraft got hurt. Then whenever Jordan Love got that concussion against Chicago, or maybe whenever Micah Parsons tore his ACL. So much like we were just discussing earlier, how the college football seasons felt like it's been over for a while now. When Micah Parsons tore his ACL, that was the NFL no longer existed as far as I was concerned.
That's why it's better to not have a team like me. You just kind of float around. Whoever's doing well, you just have fun with whatever's going on. You're not relying on the Dallas Cowboys and get your hopes up every year.
Yeah. I mean, I was gonna say it's better to have loved and lost than never loved at all, but maybe not if you love the Dallas Cowboys. Maybe it's better just
maybe not the NFL.
Yeah.
I guess if I'm being honest, growing up, I like the Cowboys. It's just they're so hard to cheer for now. But one of these days, they're gonna be good again, and then I'll be like, I've been a fan this whole time.
Been there forever. I'm sort of almost the other way. I feel like if you were born in Oklahoma, because there's not a team, that you either grow up supporting the Cowboys or viscerally hating the Cowboys. I grew up in
like whoever,
Yeah, I grew up in a hatred of the Cowboys household. My mom just didn't like the Cowboys, so I grew up just not liking the Cowboys. But it's gotten to the point where it's so sad that I have to watch my Dallas friends go through this every time that I'm honestly, as long as it's not against the Packers, I'm like, you know what, Cowboys, you can do it. Like, come on, put it together. Was it fun? All the Micah Parsons memes, that was a blast. But yeah, I'm at this point almost so sad for the Cowboys fans. But I'm sure as soon as they get that little bit of taste of glory, they'll start, big boying everybody again. And I'll be like, you know what, I'm back to the Cowboys. I'm wanting them to lose again. So,
well, the only thing we've had, I'm saying this like I'm a Cowboys fan. I'm like, the only thing we've had.
It's like I'm technically a St. Louis Cardinals fan when it comes to baseball, but I've not watched a game in forever.
That's us. With the Cowboys, though, they've had, I can't remember the name of it now. It's the documentary that came out on Netflix over the past couple of months. And it was kind of like watching the 90s Cowboys. I'm like legitimately watching this with a smile on my face. I can't remember the last time I was smiling watching the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, it's been just about my whole lifetime. It's felt like the Cowboys have just been not that great at football. I think like my earliest Cowboys memory, it was like the Tony Romo fumbled snap on the extra
Seattle.
Point. Yeah. Hey, there we go. It's all connected.
There you go.
What were we talking about?
Everything. Football, depth chart. I don't know. Might as well go to wrestling though, because
let's do it.
We're rolling in that. Oklahoma State just ran over Missouri. It was, 33-3?
Bingo.
So not the shutout that you got in Bedlam, and there's a reason for that. Zach Ryder ended up dropping one to, is he a redshirt freshman? Can't remember now, but
Yep, he was.
Aiden Sinclair from Missouri, kind of a freak. He 3-time Wisconsin state champion, 4-time conference champion, went 82-0 over his last 2 seasons, including a 37-0 senior year where all he did was win by bonus points in every single win. So pretty good, pretty decent. Yeah. So it wasn't one of those things where Zach Ryder just wasn't having a good day, had a bad match, but it was not necessarily luck for the reason of Sinclair, getting those 3 points for Missouri.
Yeah, absolutely. Honestly, I left that match, that 184-pound match, feeling pretty good about Zach Ryder. He was like right there. Aiden Sinclair gets a third period takedown, and that's pretty much, what obviously, I think it was the third period that he got the takedown. But it was right there battling literally the whole match. So I feel like from a national perspective, some guys have maybe cooled off on Zach Ryder's, title hopes or whatever a little bit. And I think, obviously he's got to find a way to score there. His offense maybe he's been lacking in certain offensive areas, but he himself was just a redshirt freshman. But a performance like that against a guy like Aiden Sinclair, I honestly left feeling pretty good about Zach Ryder. Everywhere else, it was, pretty dominant. Troy Spratley smoked Mauger right at the beginning. Jax Forrest got the go.
Got a tech fall.
Yeah, and basically the second period started and the match was over because he just needed a little bit more. I think he got a takedown in like 2 swipes really quick, and he knew that was it, and he just turned the guy over and sort of walked off the mat. So I think we can stop and talk about this a little bit. I think Jax is going. I think he's
okay.
I don't think that it would just make, because if you're going to throw Figueroa out there, A, he's 2-7 right now. So that's not really great for seeding. And then B, wouldn't you want him to get some matches? And similar to Ronnie Ramirez, who would be the other guy, he's a true freshman. You would think that if Ronnie Ramirez is going to be your guy in the postseason, get him some reps during the regular season. At this point, he's going to need matches to get qualified and stuff like that as well. So I sort of just think, given Jax's entrance into that Bedlam duel, then the fact that he went to the Cyclone Open and wrestled attached, I think he would have had to wrestle attached anyways, with it being his first semester. But the fact that they went to the Cyclone Open to use one of those dates, and then now he goes to Missouri and wrestles. I just think that they're going to use him. I think he's going to wrestle the Big 12s, wrestle the NCAA tournament. So I think that's exciting. Sergio Vega gets a pin over Hilton in a minute 32. Is classic Sergio Vega, just out scramble you. Now you're in a cradle and now you're on your back. So that was good. The Swiderski match, the 149-pound match, was interesting because Seth Mendoza was at the Cyclone Open the weekend before, and he'd wrestled Tegan Jameson, who was coming off injury, in the final. Right. Tegan Jameson lost that match. It was, I think it was just a one takedown match. Casey Swiderski beats Mendoza here 4-3. It was a tight match that the Swiderski was sort of hanging on to towards the end. So that would obviously lead you to believe Swiderski a little bit greater than Jameson right now in the terms of taking one result and then comparing it to another result. But I will say that was Tegan Jameson's first day wrestling again, and he had, I think, 4 or 5 matches in that day, and that was the last one. So yeah, I think there's maybe potentially a battle coming at that 149-pound spot, sort of just where they see Tegan in terms of him coming back from injury. So that could be a little interesting.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye on that for sure.
Landon Robideau beats Teague Travis. So Teague Travis was at Oklahoma State in the first semester, transferred to Missouri, and is wrestling there the second semester. It's his last year. He was a 2-time NCAA qualifier at Oklahoma State. Landon Robideau beats him 5-0. Teague's a tough kid. I'd imagine there was no way that Teague was going to lose that match to bonus points to a guy that obviously had already beaten him out for the spot. So I think it was a tough match from Teague. Still a good performance from Robideau. D. Lockett returned after he'd missed the Bedlam duel with some sort of bruise injury. Didn't look the greatest, but the kid that he wrestled is pretty tough as well. Wins at 4-2. What happened next? Alex Facundo beat Cam Steed in a match where nobody got a takedown, but I think that was a big win for Alex Facundo. He's wrestled almost exclusively top 10 guys. I think it was his 7th top 10 match of the year so far. So for him to get a win there, that was big. We talked about Sinclair Ryder. Cody Merrill beats his guy 4-0. Cody Merrill is just a horse on top. The Nebraska duel, I think it was it the Nebraska duel or was it the OU duel? I don't know. One of these recent duels. I think it was the OU duel. The kid just elected neutral against Cody Merrill because he didn't want to go under him because he knew that he was not getting up. And the fact that Cody Merrill's a redshirt freshman and people are already choosing neutral instead of trying to get a escape point says all you need to. Bates did not choose neutral and got ridden the whole time. So there's sort of another data point there. And then Doucette closed it with a 5-1 win over their heavyweight stoner. So yep, pretty good stuff. The fireworks really came at the beginning in terms of bonus points, but then there were some solid. That Facundo win was big. I think that Merrill win was pretty big. Swiderski beating Mendoza, given the Jameson lingering stuff, I think that was all good data points and pretty solid weekend. They went to Missouri. They were supposed to wrestle Utah Valley on Sunday. They ended up postponing that. Haven't gotten a date for that yet. So and it was a little tragic because it was supposed to be the first in-7 duel. And I think that they probably have teal singlets made for this duel that hasn't happened.
Interesting.
So, yeah, I'm interested to see what those sort of look like. I'm the basketball unis. I think they're cool. But I think at this point we've just seen them, every year now for however many years that it's sort of losing its uniqueness almost. But I'm interested to see what a teal Oklahoma State wrestling team would look like if that is the case. If they do have singlets for that.
Interesting. Yeah, that would be. I don't know if I want to see it for wrestling. I like it for basketball. Softball does it, right?
Yes, softball does it.
I was like, some of these things I'm like, maybe I've seen it in real life. Maybe I've seen it as a mock-up, with like we've done for football and we Photoshop to see what turquoise football uniforms look like. But women's basketball has done it, obviously.
They've got the blackout duels this weekend. I'm not sure if it's the Northern Iowa duel or the Iowa State duel. I should know that off the top of my head, but I don't. But that's always a cool little environment that they,
Nice.
Especially whenever GI is packed as it is for wrestling duels, whenever they go blackout.
Yeah. Speaking of, so we have, you and I on Friday and then the big duel against Iowa State on Sunday. And then I guess it was Coach Taylor on his radio show said that the Iowa State duel next Sunday is almost sold out.
It's a big duel, so it should be.
So
yeah.
Get your tickets if you haven't got them already.
Yeah, it'll be a big one. So Iowa State is actually ranked 3rd in the coaches poll right now. Oklahoma State's ranked 5th in the coaches poll right now.
Ooh.
Yeah, so there's going to be matches top to bottom that are very interesting and of note going into that duel. So that'll that'll be big. And it's obviously, whoever wins that's probably going to be the favorites of the Big Ten. It's obviously a little bit different, giving it's a tournament, not duels. I think Oklahoma State is maybe a better tournament team. Let's see. I'm saying it. I'm not sure if I'm trying to determine if I believe it. I think Oklahoma State's probably a better tournament team than they are a dual team. I still obviously think they're a pretty good dual team, but I think that they'll do better tournaments with their scoring, especially from those lighter weights. So, but the duel on Sunday will be huge. Northern Iowa has turned into a pretty good program themselves. They're a little bit down this year compared to what they were the past couple of years when they had Parker Kickeisen, but there's still going to be some pretty good matches in that, I imagine. I think Jared Sima is probably going to wrestle Alex Facundo. Alex Facundo just keeps having ridiculous matches. I imagine he moved to the Big 12 and out of the Big 10 and was like, oh, cool, now I'm wrestling a harder schedule. That didn't make any sense. So it's been a really, really tough year for Alex Facundo, who's obviously, and honestly, he's looking better and better of late. So yeah, that Northern Iowa duel will be good. They're ranked 13th in that coaches poll, but yeah, I think all eyes will be on Sunday, especially.
What else we got here? I saw that the 10th ranked women's tennis team beat Texas Tech to advance to the indoor national championships. They're going to compete February 6th. Not too long right after that. I'm looking at the calendar here. We've got baseball coming up, believe it or not. So
that's crazy. Baseball always sneaks up on me. Always.
So it's way too early, but February 13th, and I guess it'll be indoors, I guess. So it helps a little bit, but February 13th versus Arkansas, February 14th versus OU, February 15th versus Vanderbilt. So knocking all of that out, goodness. Yeah, it's coming up quick. I don't know if I'm not ready for it. And if I'm not ready for it, I can imagine you're probably not ready for it yourself. So,
yeah, I got so there's softball's having its media day on Wednesday. They sent that email out, I think Friday, and then I was just like, it is January. You should not be emailing me about softball right now, but yeah, 'tis the season, I guess. The women's team, we should hit on the women's basketball team a little bit. They lost in Boulder, which is not ideal. It unfortunately seems like this women's team is capable of just dropping a game randomly that you don't think that they're supposed to drop. But
they
beat
also Colorado like pretty bad earlier this year, right? Was it the same? Didn't they beat Colorado like the same week that we played OU or something?
Yeah, they beat them 63-56. So it wasn't horrible. But then they go to Boulder and lose 79-65. But that comes after they beat Iowa State by dang near 30. So a little bit confusing there. That ended a 3-game winning streak for JC Hoyt's squad. So yeah, obviously need to get back on track. I still think it's a pretty good team. I think it's definitely a tournament bound team capable of dropping a game every now and again. It's what we've learned about that group.
There you go. I think that just about covers everything we were going to talk on this week. We'll have got
some tennis in there. What else could we have possibly mentioned?
I don't know. We'll have stuff for you next week, I guess. Whenever Nathan comes back, he wasn't able to have his flu game performance this week, so that he's down bad. So Nathan, get better.
Absolutely.
We'll come up with some other topics to talk about as we're approaching these upcoming sports, but we're obviously very much looking forward to the Eric Morris era. So we'll be keeping you informed about all that's going on. Marshall, anything else before we head out?
Thanks for listening. Stay warm, drip your faucets or whatever, and keep shoveling snow. I don't know. I got nothing. I'm delirious at this point. My wife's grateful for this podcast because I bet she's sick of sitting next to me. So,
oh my gosh. Well, the only other thing that you can do is remember to keep those pistols firing and to reload. Go Pokes.